They said no one could breach a Vexar temple, so I dropped a mech on it. My name's Captain Riovas, call sign Deadeye, and when Earth's last bastion sent a distress beam, I cashed in every favor left in the solar system for a one-way ticket to orbit. The Gravestone Riders don't do extraction. We do impact. Karen, my 40-ton retrofitted walking war crime, screamed her descent warning in 3 different languages. I kicked the thruster override and dove straight into the Vexar's high temple like I had something to prove. We came in too hot. Didn't matter. The temple was carved from psychoreactive crystal, supposedly immune to all forms of primitive kinetics. Karen disagreed. We hit it like Judgment Day. Columns exploded in a halo of fire and alien scripture. The Vexar guards had exactly 2 seconds to contemplate their gods before I vaporized their altar with a retrofitted mining drill turned plasma lamp. My cockpit shuddered. Karen's diagnostics lit up like a birthday cake, stabilizers offline, cooling loop compromised, unknown component installed. That last one wasn't new. I duct taped a backup AI module from a scrapyard murder bot into her spine 6 months ago. She hadn't forgiven me since. Deadeye, you alive down there? Torres called in. I spotted his pod spiraling in, Beluga's massive frame barely contained by its ablative shell. Always, I said, your aim still sucks. Beluga cratered beside me like a meteor, kicking up shards of burning glass. He emerged swinging a makeshift warhammer that might have once been part of a playground. Temple still standing, he asked. Not for long. More riders punched through the atmosphere behind us, red streaks tearing the sky, mechs cobbled from apocalypse dreams, landing like thunder gods with engine fires and vengeance issues. We weren't an army. We were a consequence. We weren't supposed to exist anymore. After the Martian induction wars, the Gravestone Riders were blacklisted, decommissioned, and buried in bureaucratic red tape so deep you'd think we were ghosts. But when Fort Cairn lit up every emergency channel, Command opened the vaults and pulled us out like a bad habit. They didn't call us because we were clean. They called us because we were still breathing. Thoris dropped next to me, Beluga's metal bulk groaning under re-entry scorch and last-minute weld jobs. His mech had the silhouette of a junkyard bouncer, thick legs, heavy plating, and a left arm replaced with a shipping crate holding a magnetized maul. He wore an old Earth Navy patch on his chest, mostly out of irony. You bring lunch, he asked over comms. Just rage, I replied, adjusting Karen's sensor gain. Hope you're hungry. Then came Juno, silent as a ghost. Her mech snarled and walked. It skittered, too many legs and all attitude, low to the ground and twitchy with flechette arrays. She perched on a ruined spire like a predatory bird. No greeting, no chatter. If Juno spoke, you paid attention. If she laughed, something was already on fire. Craze Pod cracked the plaza like a hammer. His mech dustbiter stood tall and stupidly confident. No guns, just drills and serrated blades. The external speakers blared old-school death metal as he charged up his rotary saw. The Vexar would call it noise pollution. We called it therapy. At me, I'm Deadeye, scarred, cyber eye, too old for this war, too angry to quit. Karen and I have been through 13 hellscapes and still owed each other 3 favors and a proper shutdown sequence. I patched her voice module with war crime firmware, and she's been singing bad diagnostics ever since. Riders, I growled. Fan out. Psychic signatures are peaking. And if it screams, Taurus asked, burn it anyway. We heard the next weapon before we saw it, a ripple through the air, a pressure behind the eyes. Then came the scream. Not a sound, but a force, pure, engineered terror slamming into our minds like a freight train full of regrets. Karen's HUD jittered. Taurus cursed. Juno flinched. Cray laughed. Vexar scream cannons. Psychic artillery projected raw emotional pain across miles. They didn't need ammo, just your worst memories. I locked my jaw and let it wash over me. First came the heat of old failure, a mission I didn't finish, a face I left behind. Then came the guilt. Then came the sorrow. Childhood voices warped by static, laughter turned inside out. A lesser pilot might have cracked. A younger me might have screamed. But we weren't wired like that anymore. The riders weren't trained to resist fear, we were trained to chew it. Karen, I whispered, give me fire. Roared in response. Flames poured out of her side mount cannon, licking up the temple walls as psychic residue caught and burned in streaks of purple and green. The air itself screamed back, but we were louder. Beluga charged straight through a hallucination. His left arm caught fire. He used it to club a floating priest thing that shimmered out of phase. Deadeye, Taurus grunted. I think reality's mad at me, then hit it harder. Snarl leapt overhead, plasma flechettes snapping like teeth. Juno's silhouette blurred between psychic projections. She moved like someone who'd already died once and didn't plan to wait for round two. Prey activated dust spiders, saws, and chewed through a statue possessed by whatever the hell passed for a Vexar exorcist. Psychic ichors splashed like neon blood across the stone floor. The scream cannon powered up again. This time, the resonance focused on me. Karen's systems flashed red. Subject exposed to fear class, Theta 7, unchecked. I smiled. Theta 7 was the name of a horror movie we watched on the ride, and you can tell how bad it's going by how much duct tape you see. By hour 6, Beluga's left arm was held together with scrap plating, half a rebar beam, and what might have once been a cafeteria tray. Torres was grinning like it was payday. She'll hold, he said, then slapped the joint. It sparked. Sparks were good. Sparks meant something was trying. Karen had blown her combustion regulator again. I bypassed the cooling loop with a converter salvage from a Vexar altar pylon. Probably a war crime. Definitely not in the manual. Deadeye, Karen chirped in her broken, synthesized voice. Reminder, my chassis is 73% improvised and highly flammable. Noted, I muttered, slamming the panel closed. Snarl crouched overhead, covering our makeshift pit stop while Juno recalibrated her flechette rail. She didn't speak, just reloaded while watching the temple's east wing crack open like a wound. The Vexar had called in muscle. The Dravok hit us in waves, lumbering reptilian monsters with armor-plated limbs and zero subtlety. The first one bull rushed through the rubble, took a flechette burst to the chest, then kept coming. I pivoted Karen's legs, vented her flame coils, and roasted the bastard mid-charge. It kept hissing until its bones cracked under Karen's knee spike. Messy, effective. Dust Spider roared out of the side corridor, drills spinning, saw screeching, covered in blood that didn't look entirely organic. Gray was laughing. That was normal. Did we just repurpose the temple kitchen as a repair bay? Torres asked between hammer swings. I think this counter used to bless offerings, I said. It does. We're offering pain. More Dravak followed, climbing walls, charging through flame. No formation, no strategy, just meat and orders. We pushed through. I barked, no clean fights, no standoffs, only forward. Karen beeped. Diagnostic failed, dignity not detected. I grinned. Perfect. At the heart of the temple stood a cathedral built from memory and madness. Crystalline pillars spiraled upward into nothing, carved with psionic glyphs that shifted when you blinked. Choir pits floated midair, emitting harmonic dread. The air wasn't just stale, it was holy. The kind of holy that made your skin crawl and your mech's targeting HUD twitch like it had seen God, and didn't like the odds. This whole room's a sermon, I muttered, Karen's sensors shorting with every step, and it's preaching obedience. Juno crouched on a ledge, scanning the walls. Glyphs are alive, responsive, might be able to blind us if they align and break their rhythm. Torrance grunted as Beluga kicked over an altar, saying no to psychic choir voice. We advanced carefully. Karen's feet echoed against memory-tuned stone. The temple interior pulsed like a living lung, breathless but expectant. Then the war prius appeared. Hovering forms, cloaked in shifting light, their limbs curled inward, faces covered by masks of woven static. They didn't carry weapons. They were weapons. A war priest extended a single finger. The room shifted 90 degrees sideways. Beluga slid across the floor like a rolling tank shell, crashing into a row of hovering scripture tablets that exploded into wailing holograms. Karen's gravity stabilizers buckled. Magnetic fields up, I shouted. We activated our defensive lattice, a repurposed mining shield that screamed bloody murder when overloaded. The psionic pressure slammed into us like a tsunami made of guilt. My lungs froze for half a breath. Hey, didn't wait. Dustbiter crashed through the wall like theology owed him money, shredding a psionic glyph with his claw and roaring a hymn of saw blades and disrespect. Taurus followed, swinging his maul into the nearest floating priest and breaking the doctrine. I activated Karen's flamethrower. Let's rewrite this scripture. Holy light burned black. There's a point in every battle when you stop wondering how to win and start asking how long you can keep standing. For us, that point hit around the 18-hour mark. The temple was half collapsed, the psychic field was glitching like a corrupted dream, and our mechs were one false weld from becoming tombstone. Karen's left arm was slagged. Her right flame tank had a stress fracture sealed with bonding foam and stubborn hope. Beluga's power rooting hummed like it was praying. Dustbiter had a hole the size of a gunship in its midsection, but Cray still charged ahead like he owed death a favor. We rebuilt where we could. Taurus ripped a Dravik exoskeleton apart and fused its spine plating to his damaged armature. Juno stripped psionic crystal panels from the wall and fused them into Snarl's limb servos, twice as fast, 3 times as unstable. Karen got a fresh plate from a fallen altar slab etched with Vexar prayer script. It pulsed faintly with psionic feedback. I slapped it on her flank and secured it with welding glue and spite. She beeped at me. Translation sacrilege detected. Good. Bless me later. We hadn't eaten in hours. Rations were gone. Hydration packs were empty. I chewed something that might have been a nutrient pod or a decorative crystal. It tasted like regret and mint. Still better than cafeteria meat, Torres grunted, biting into a broken Vexar communion disc. Outside, the Vexar field twisted reality like a dying animal. The sky inside the temple changed colors every minute. Time rippled. Echoes of our own voices came back from a battle we hadn't fought yet. They're trying to collapse the dimension, Juno said. Can't win? Break the board. No, I said, tightening a bolt on Karen's leg. We're not done playing. The Vexar saved their worst for last. We entered the final sanctum through a wound in the wall. Literal, not poetic. The temple had started bleeding, thick streaks of psionic ichor oozing from fractures in the architecture. Every step we took pulsed, like we were walking across a living nerve. Karen twitched. Not mechanically, emotionally. She didn't like it here. I'm getting signals from every spectrum, she said through fractured speech. Some of them are screaming. The chamber was a dome of madness. Faces formed in the walls, not carvings, imprints, as if memory itself had been nailed to stone. I saw soldiers who died on Mars, a city I failed to save. My mother's face, twisted in accusation. I blinked, and it was Juno's face, then my own, then gone. This is where they feed, Juno said quietly, on fear, on pain. In the center hovered their god, or what passed for one. The Vexar overlord was nothing like the priests. It was worse. A mass of orbiting limbs, mouths, eyes, each blinking out of sync, each whispering a memory you didn't want to hear. It floated inside a lattice of condensed emotion. Pain made solid. The temperature dropped 5 degrees the second it noticed us. You are unclean, it said. Its voice wasn't sound, it was judgment. Taurus raised Beluga's hammer. You don't know us well enough to judge. I've seen your minds. You carry ruin. Good, I said, locking Karen's systems. We brought enough to share. The fear wave hit. Full spectrum psychic assault. Regret, guilt, shame, dread. Karen's HUD blacked out. Systems screamed. My brain convulsed like a crushed server core. But I didn't flinch. I'd seen worse. Gray left. Do you know that move? Therese clenched his fists. We advanced because monsters don't scare us. We scared them. The Overlord struck first. Reality cracked, not visually, viscerally. Karen's internal gyros screamed. My HUD showed a horizon bent sideways, then folded like a crushed can. The air turned inside out. Suddenly we were falling without moving. Karen, stabilized now. Working on it, she replied. Physics is temporarily unavailable. Dr. Overlord pulsed with condensed memory. From its many mouths came screams, not battle cries, but our screams. Ones we hadn't made yet. It was projecting future trauma. Torres was the first to act. Beluga launched a full salvo of rail spikes at the core mass. Most melted midair. One struck home, barely, and left a glistening welt of exposed bone-like crystal. That's its anchor, Juno shouted. Aim for the light node. Cray didn't wait for permission. Dustbiter leapt over us, engines howling. He rammed the node with both drills spinning at max. Psionic ichors sprayed the room. The Overlord shrieked and the dome shuddered, psionic walls cracking like glass. Then came the retaliation. The floor liquefied into regret. Literal regret. My legs burned with memories. Names of every soldier I'd lost, every call I didn't make in time. Karen's systems tried to override the sensation. Couldn't. Ed-Eye, she whispered. You're bleeding memory. I'm fine. You're forgetting yourself. No time to respond, the Overlord pulsed again, sending a shockwave of mirrored illusions. My mech staggered, but I pushed through it. Focus fire, I barked, hit the node again. Snarl cloaked and reappeared directly under the core, flechette slamming into its underside. Beluga followed with a hammer swing that flattened a floating limb. It howled, not in rage, in surprise. They weren't used to being hurt. We weren't supposed to last this long. That's why we would win. The Overlord fought like a wounded god. Limbs whipped through the air, slicing clean through psionic architecture. Beluga caught a glancing blow and spun backwards into a wall, shoulder armor caved in. Torres grunted, his vitals spiking. Still here, he growled. Heron surged forward. My vision doubled, static in my skull. This wasn't just combat, it was interference. The Overlord wasn't reading our minds anymore. It was editing them. I can't see, Juno snapped, who've been replaced with childhood dreams. I always hated flashbacks, I muttered. Aaron fired blind, launching a flamethrower burst into the fog. The air caught fire. Literally. Fear is flammable here, apparently. The blaze disrupted the projection. Juno darted forward, stabbed upward into the Overlord's lowest eye cluster. It screeched. Psionic walls buckled. The riders pressed the advantage. Dustbiter used a fallen column as a battering ram, slamming the core again. Torres, bruised but furious, activated Beluga's sonic pulse, disrupting the Overlord's feedback loop. I emptied Karen's last plasma shell into the exposed anchor. And then crack, the core split. A shock wave dropped everyone, systems offline, HUD blank. For a moment, there was silence. I thought we'd won. Until the room stopped existing. Not collapsed. Stop existing. No walls, no ceiling, no light, just void. The kind of void where your thoughts echo out of sync. A Karen, no response. Riders, report. Nothing. Then, faintly, a whisper, not from comms, from inside my skull. You think you are the nightmare, but you are the dream about to end. The Overlord hadn't died. Ascended. This wasn't space. Space is empty. This place was hollow. I floated inside Karen's cockpit, strapped into a dead mech, surrounded by blackness that wasn't black at all. It was something behind color. My hands twitched on dead controls. I couldn't hear anything except the wet, slow thump of my own pulse, and even that felt like an echo. Time didn't move here. It paused to watch. Karen's voice finally cracked through, corrupted and faint. Captain, sensor input invalid, memory anchor disconnected. Override, I said, though. I couldn't tell if I was speaking out loud or thinking in all caps. Bring back anything. Power, movement, sarcasm. I'll take any of it. Faint static. A spark in the dark. Karen's boot sequence began, slower than usual, like she was waking from a coma. Partial systems restored. Reactor offline. Environmental map. Gone. And then it spoke. You were alone. The Vexar Overlord wasn't a creature anymore. It had become a pattern, a lattice of limbs and awareness, flickering between dimensions. Its voice didn't vibrate my ears. It remembered itself into my mind, pressing horror against the walls of my thoughts. You burn brightly, little thing, but you are not flame. You are flash paper. You fade. I faded before, I muttered. Still here. To be seen once is a miracle. To be remembered is a mistake. Across the void, I glimpsed Snarl, flickering like a dying star. Juno's mech, legs fractured, shimmered as if undecided about existing. Torres floated inside Beluga, breathing but still. Cray, of course, was missing, because he was never where logic expected him. We weren't being killed, we were being erased, unwritten by the will of a higher creature that hated noise and entropy. It wanted silence, obedience, clean endings. Karen, I said, voice hardening, you've got enough juice for one more trick? Only one. Then let's get stupid. I reached for the override cable, pulled the failsafe circuit, and jammed it into Karen's core. She shuddered. The void blinked. We roared. The void cracked. Not like glass, like an idea breaking under pressure. One moment, everything was nothing. The next, we slammed back into reality like a scream finally exhaled. Karen's systems flared, HUD rebooting in layers, targeting grid, thermal, auditory sync. My breath hitched. I felt weight again. Captain, Karen said, her voice rasping but whole. Psychic lock broken. All systems degraded, but operational. We were back, but not safe. Around us, the sanctum groaned like a wounded beast. Gravity pulsed. The temple had been warped, melted, reformed. Its geometry no longer obeyed conventional rules. Stairways led nowhere. Shadows moved ahead of light. Debris floated sideways, then fell up. Reborn and monstrous, Pava the Vexar Overlord. No longer pretending to be a god, it had become belief incarnate. A swirling cathedral of limbs, shrieking eyes, and psionic lashes. Symbols bled from its surface, language made liquid. It didn't speak anymore. It radiated intention, to erase, to consume, to rewrite every mind that dared oppose it. Karen, I said, gripping the throttle, let's finish this. Our signal pulse, the writers responded. Dustbiter erupted from a side corridor, rebuilt with sheer madness. Its right arm now a fusion of temple wreckage and drill. Snarl's silhouette shimmered back into visibility, glowing faintly with unstable stealth tag. Beluga limped forward, hissing coolant, sparks trailing his hammer like fireflies of vengeance. We didn't speak. We didn't need to. Something had synchronized us, not tactically, but emotionally. Not control, but conviction. We charged together, targeting the core that pulsed at the center of the Overlord's frame, the same weakness, the same fear. I pushed Karen into overdrive. Her systems screamed, but she moved like fury with knees. Flames surged from her side vents as the spear heated, white hot. Last shot, Karen said. Make it count. We struck the core. In a god bro, not in a flash, not with a scream, but with a shudder, the kind of collapse that happens when a lie finally realizes it's been caught. When the Overlord shattered, the world didn't explode. It exhaled. Her light vanished first, collapsed inward like a curtain falling on a brutal performance. Then came the silence, heavy and absolute, broken only by the mechanical cough of dying systems and the creak of cooling steel. No victory fanfare, no divine chorus, just 4 mechs barely standing in a room that no longer cared if gods existed. Karen's cockpit dimmed to emergency levels. I smelled burning plastic and hot metal, felt the ache of 10 hours compressed into every muscle fiber. Her voice crackled low. Captain, system stable, core holding, firewalls still active. We're here. Define here. Coordinates uncertain, reality stabilizing. I looked around. Dustbiter stood slumped over the remains of a shattered pillar, drills locked in place like a monument. Cray sat on the mech's knee, helmet off, eating a ration bar and staring at nothing in particular. The man looked like he'd fought death to a draw and then tipped the table out of spite. Snarl was crouched under a collapsed archway. Two of her 6 legs fused together with alien alloy and dried blood. Juno didn't move much, just kept scanning the walls, eyes never stopping. She'd seen too much, maybe. We all had. Beluga knelt next to a steaming crater. Torres climbed down slowly, gripping his side with one arm, the other wrapped in makeshift armor plating that looked suspiciously like a melted temple door. "You all right?" I asked. "HFY all right," he muttered and coughed something wet. We were still breathing, barely. The temple had collapsed into itself, now more ruin than monument. Its once holy walls were blackened, half melted, covered in soot and silence. Psionic glyphs flickered uselessly, their power source gone, their religion hollow. Terran systems pinged again. Environmental conditions, survivable. Suggest rest cycle, sunrise in 20 minutes. I didn't answer immediately, just stared at the slowly brightening sky, smoke curling upward like incense. We hadn't saved the world. We just made damn sure they couldn't unmake it. Or broadcast everything. Not the sanitized version, the real thing. The raw footage, the helmet cam feeds, the corrupted audio logs, the scream that cracked a dimension, every flicker of every fight, stitched together by Karen, while her core barely held a charge. She pushed it out across subspace, like a flare, into a dark ocean. It took 39 seconds to hit Fort Karen, 17 minutes to reach the Accord's outer relay stations. By the time Karen's systems fully shut down for emergency cooldown, we'd gone viral across 9 star clusters. But we didn't send a message to inspire hope, we sent proof. Proof that the worst thing in the galaxy, the Vexar Ascendancy, their gods, their screams, their mind tricks, could die. That they bled. That someone, anyone, had punched a hole in a nightmare and crawled out the other side. And then the responses came. First Fort Cairn, then Terrace Point, then Bastion 5, all the way out in the Mantic Rim, colony after colony, outpost after outpost, each one pinging us, not with gratitude, not with medals, just with coordinates, distress calls, soft requests framed like questions they were afraid to ask. "Are you still alive? And you do it again? Can we?" I didn't answer, none of us did. Beluga's power cell was half melted. Snarl's weapon mounts were fused shut. Karen's primary cooling loop hissed like a punctured lung. Cray kept pacing. Juno didn't speak at all. Torres, bruised and bloody, stared at the signal queue with one good eye. "They're scared," he finally said. "No," I replied. "They're ready to stop being scared. The Gravestone Riders were never supposed to be an example. We weren't a standard. We were a mistake, a myth, a last resort. And now we were a question. If we can fight gods, why can't you?" Karen pulsed faintly. "Captain, incoming message. No encryption, just 3 words." Wait a minute. And the Riders. I stared at the signal for a long time. Didn't reply, but I let it keep blanking. Maybe we weren't done after all. We stayed for 1 more week, not because we had to, because it felt right to finish what we started. The Vexar Temple was dead, but the bones still twitched. So we cleaned house. Every psionic relay left pulsing, we crushed. Every altar still humming, we melted down into armor plates. Torres made a chess piece out of a sanctified glyph tablet. Juno hardwired a psychic emitter into Snarl's radar core for fun. Cray sculpted his mech's new kneecap out of a collapsed shrine and painted a smiley face on it. Erin asked me what she should do with the final fragment of the Overlord's core. "Save it," I said. "A study? Or a drink coaster?" She beeped in approval. By day 3, the temple's geometry finally stopped shifting. The gravity settled, the air stopped tasting like regret. We made a fire, not because we were cold, because it felt human. We passed around ration bars and pretended they tasted like anything but cardboard and chemical sadness. A Vexar probe showed up on day 6. It didn't fire, it didn't speak, just hovered, 100 meters above us, humming with the unmistakable frequency of interstellar. What the hell just happened here? Or a wave. I flipped it off. Juno tossed a rock at it, which was technically a war crime. The probe buzzed, paused, and backed off. They wouldn't be back. Not soon, and not without a new god and a very long checklist. Terran's diagnostics pinged. Captain, restore stability detected. No hostile interference in 112 hours. Feels weird, I said, leaning back against her warm hull. Peace. Statistical anomaly. Enjoy it while it lasts. I smiled. You're learning sarcasm. Uploading SAS module. Taurus limped over, holding 2 bent pieces of metal. These were part of the temple gate. Hey, what are you making? He grinned. A new front door. Juno snorted. Cray raised his ration bar in toast. We didn't call it victory, we called it Tuesday. We left nothing behind, not orders, not regrets, just scorch marks and a few choice words carved into temple stone with a plasma cutter. The inscription read, "If it works, it's not overkill." Underneath, I added one more line before we powered down. Apply violently. Karen hummed her shutdown melody, something between a funeral dirge and elevator jazz. Beluga slumped into low power mode beside her, a monument to brute force engineering. Dustbiter refused to shut down entirely, so Cray just turned the music louder and called it a compromise. Snarl perched on a jagged ledge, glowing faintly from her new psychic core. Juno called it a vibe. No medals, no parades, no high command waiting at the edge of the crater. Just us, burned, battered, running on recycled coolant and caffeine-flavored adrenaline packs. But we were alive, and Earth was still spinning. Terran's comms crackled. Captain, long-range signal inbound. From who? Unknown, heavily encrypted, routing now. The message unfolded as clean text across my HUD. No ID tag, no intro, just a single sentence. That wasn't the only god. I stared at it for a moment, let it sink in. Taurus glanced over, chewing the last bite of ration bar with the expression of a man who knew exactly where this was going. Let me guess, more screaming, more mind-melting hellscapes, more walking metaphors trying to play God? Most likely. He grinned. Great. I just rewired my leg servos with parts from a toaster. We're ready. Pairing pinged. System integrity. All systems nominal. Rage storage at capacity. Juno loaded a fresh flechette pack without comment. Cray opened a new playlist. We didn't wait for coordinates. We just turned toward the rising sun, shadows trailing behind our mechs like myths. We weren't heroes, never claimed to be. We were a question the galaxy couldn't stop asking. What happens when humans stop running? Here's the answer. You brought nightmares. We brought the people who eat them for breakfast. And now we're hungry again.